Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I'm going to make lots of little short clips here, not about specific plants, but it's like a continuation of my set logic. Yeah? So I've just started watering, check my notes, and the cool growers got a low level feed last time. Well, so this time those types, because most of the cool growers, not all, don't like build-up of salts in their pots. Things like Miltoniopsis, Masdevallias, Restrepias. You get any build-up of salts in the pots there and their roots go down. Yeah, so got to go careful with those. So they get very light levels of feed, followed by a flush. And even in the height of the growing season, that stays the same. So I can clear the whole of that bottom shelf off and water it with RO water. Yeah, doesn't that make life easy? Because I know, because they're on that shelf, they can all get treated the same at the moment. There's always an exception. Yeah, that coelogeny is still quite wet, so it can miss a run. Yeah, bearing in mind the run is going to get more frequent now, so even if it does dry off, it won't be dry for long. But no water for that one. A good soak for all of those. That's mainly Masdevallias and the young Restrepias. But there's two coelogenies there as well, but they all got treated the same. They all got a flush. Okay, next shelf up, exactly the same. Yeah, so we've got the Miltoniopsis here, another Masdevallia, well, that's actually a Dracula cross, and some more Restrepias, and then we've got the more mature Restrepias, and this odd thing, which is a Pleurothallus actually. It's Restrepiodes Dragonstone, and it's in the Why Won't You Bloom set, but I think it might be going to. That's its latest leaf, and that one. And that one's not too old, and there are signs that this may actually bloom. That's where the blooms come from, at the base of the leaf, and well, we shall see. But yeah, the only exception there is the Deesas. Now they need quite good light, but they like to stay cool. Yeah, and those get watered from the bottom of the pot, so I need access to them. Now ideally they should go along the back of that shelf where they get the best light. But if I put them there, everything else is in the way and they must never dry out. So I must have access to those plants, but I want to keep them cool. And I've just thought that if they went up a shelf, they'd be in the line of fire of that permanent fan. So they would have the moving air and the cool, but they'd get the brighter light. So they're going to get moved this time round. That's a short shelf, yeah, so I can get at that shelf anytime I like. So a little bit of adjustment as I go round, but nonetheless all the plants have just been flushed the same as the shelf below. Now I need to stop and have a think because I'm changing plant type. Right, so that's got my Deesas, where I can get at them and in better light than they were in before. So although that's through the shade netting, it's still pretty bright, but it's in line of fire of that fan, so it should keep the air moving and keep them cooler. So we'll see how they do there. I'd like them to be cooler than that, really. It's not a strong fan, but it's still early in the year. They're growing well, so we'll try them there for a bit. Then we move on to what else was on that shelf, which I've just moved over there. I haven't watered it yet. And we move up to this shelf. Now, this is mainly Oncidiums, but there's a couple of oddities in there. There's a couple of Dendrobiums in there. There's a Latoria and a few other things. But as far as feeding and watering are concerned, everything else in pots except for the holy clay pots is on the same feeding and watering cycle now. And they got a CalMag feed followed by a normal low-level feed, so this time they get a flush. So in fact this time, purely coincidentally, they're going to get exactly the same watering as the previous lot had. That makes my life easy because I just need clean water every now and again. So we'll crack on with the next shelf. Right, a couple of more sets then. We've got the Vandas, they're getting a flush at the moment because I've just changed the water. And while they're down getting dunked in the bucket, I've got access to that shelf. So again, ease of workload. Get the vanders out of the way, I can easily stretch across that shelf and get across those plants. Now all the rest of the pots today, apart from the holy clay pots which aren't getting watered, will get flushed. Now I don't know whether I shall finish that job today. I'll do my best, I'm going to keep going at it. But I now have a subset of plants in amongst those. And those are those that have been recently repotted. Those dry out faster now than I like. They're actually staying dry for a few days before I get to them, and I want to stop that. So as I go round now, I'm going to pick out those that have been recently repotted and get them set up either on that shelf there or this shelf here. And then they can come round to their watering a bit sooner than the rest of the pots, which will be everywhere else. So yet again, another little subset to help my workload. And I've just thought of another little subset of plants as I'm watering. Obviously this doesn't happen every time, but this is the twinkle cinnamon that was in bloom for quite a long time and had a lot of spikes on it. It's pushing its new growths, yeah, and that will be accompanied by new roots. It's outgrown its pot, and it's one of those with a shed load of algae. So that's in a separate little set called Repot Me Now. So I'll just stick that one in the dining room, not water it, and then that can get a repot. And there's a couple of bugs on that one as well, so I can get a clean up at the same time. That's the first bugs I've spotted today. It's not exactly an outbreak, but there are a couple lurking in there, so we'll get at those and stick that in the repotting set. Now I've got my new bark. I'll stick this one in the middle purely because this plant actually holds its water quite well in what it's in. What it's in I'm not sure of, but I know the guy I bought it from tends to use pretty good quality bark, and he'll have that in large bark with quite a lot of grit, so it drains fast. That's how he likes to pot things like this. But I was just looking at this because those are the two latest growths with the shiny new leaves on, and this one I got purely because of the blooms, even though I knew nothing about it, but I could see from the canes that it's a black hair type, so that fits in with the Latorias, which seem to do well, so I grabbed it quick. It was actually in bloom at the time. I'll put a pop up. But that is a bud. So that cane's matured and it's pushing its bud already. This cane, however, hasn't matured yet. It hasn't opened its last leaf. But ever vigilant, there's a mealybug down there, just the one. Now that can just have the spot treatment. So I've got some alcohol. And remember, the killing process doesn't involve soaking the blinking things, it involves getting them, and then that evaporation is what kills them. So that's just a spot treatment. But nonetheless, if I left it, next time there could be half a dozen, or 3 dozen. Or 3 dozen on that plant and 2 dozen on the plant next to it. So you've got to keep at them. When you see bugs, kill them there and then. Stop what you're doing, deal with the bugs. Whatever else you were doing is probably less important. So that is a primary cross actually, and it's got infundibulum in it. Yeah, it's infundibulum crossed with lowii, and it's the infundibulum that gives it its bloom size. As I say, I'll do a pop-up, but they are huge and gorgeous, and that's a bud. Now that's very sad. This Brassia tessa is the last remaining bulb of what was a large plant that just collapsed on me. And last time I filmed this, I went, whoa, it's growing a new growth. Well, it's being silly and pushing up a spike. It's a single bulb with good roots. If I let that spike, that will totally drain the only bulb I have left of the plant. So I'm going to have to take the spike off. But I don't want to take it off now. I want to let it grow a bit first, so that when I cut it, it's away from the base of the plant, just in case it rots back. So that's a precaution. So I'll give that another week and then I'll take the spike off. But I can't let that single bulb bloom. That'll totally drain the plant. And hopefully by letting the spike get going a little bit, when I take it off, it may trigger what I'm after, which is a new growth. Because that's its only chance of survival, is to get a nice strong new growth going. It's got a pot full of roots, you know, it's done that bit, but now it's decided to push a spike up. I can't let that go, I'm afraid, not in this case. This is one of those, oh well, never mind moments. While I've been watering today, this was on the top shelf, and in amongst all the pots and foliage and stuff, I've been finding little discarded yellow twinkle blooms. It's going over, so I don't think this is going to make the show on Saturday. I'll have to literally do an assessment. The spikes did open at different times. I mean, this is a relatively recent spike, so is this. But this tall one here has lost quite a few of its blooms. This one's starting to. You can see a faded one there. This one's starting to, and the one round the back has virtually finished dropping its blooms. So if it shows a lot of signs of the blooms going over, there's no point in putting it in the show. So I'll have to make an assessment on, you know, literally on Saturday morning before I go, or Friday night or whatever. But that might not make it to the next show. You know, blooms only last so long. It did well last Saturday. You can see how well it did down there. You know, if it doesn't make it to the second show, so be it. You know, you can only put the plants in that are right. You know, there's no point in putting what I would call substandard plants in. There's just no point. You know, with all the transport, possible damage, and, you know, I might be making my way through 2 foot of snow to get there on Saturday, looking at the weather forecast. But yeah, it's a shame, but it's going over. So, you know, I'll leave the moss and leave it in its display pot and everything for now, just in case it's still okay. And then if it's not, I can take it out, get the moss off, put it back in the tray and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it did well last week, but I don't think it's going to last till Saturday, which is a shame. But with everything that's not quite going to plan, okay, Twinkle might not make it to the show, but that one can. The rules are different. So that one can actually go in the show. It couldn't go in last Saturday's show because the rules state you have to have owned the plant for 12 months. Well, I got that at Malvern last year in June. The rules for this Saturday's show say you have to have owned it for 6 months, which I have. So this one can go in the show instead. Now that's going to be an easy one to do because that went to the last show in the display, not in the competition as such. I'd already cleaned the leaves up. Yeah, so all I've actually got to do is get this one out of that black pot and put that one in it and put the moss round it, and it's ready to go. So I think this Saturday I'll take the epidendrum, forget the twinkle, because I know there's going to be quite a few less blooms on there, so we'll forget that one for Saturday, take that one instead, and there's no reason why the orange cattleya can't go, so I'll probably go with just those two. And yeah, as I say, I might be heading through 2 foot of snow. A lovely sunny day today, and yesterday we had a little snow flurry. It left like a little coating of icing sugar on everything. And I remember looking out sort of later in the day as it was starting to get dark, thinking, is that it? Is that the best you can do? Come on! But looking at the weather forecast, we're not going to get away with it now. We've got a Siberian icy blast coming across. Thank you very much, just what we needed. And even though the sun's out and it's lovely and warm in here, the outside temperature with that breeze is around freezing. And overnight we're going down to like -8, -10. This is not funny in this part of the world, but that icy blast is an easterly blast going across the south coast at the moment. And we've then got a named storm coming up from the south, where it's warmer and there's a lot of moisture in that air, and when that air hits this icy blast, it's going to dump snow everywhere. So I don't think we're going to get away with it this time, and that's during tomorrow and Friday. This is supposed to be happening, and I got to travel on Saturday, so a lot of it depends on just how much we get and how fast they clear the roads. I mean, the main roads and everything will be fine by Saturday. They'll get that done, even if they have to do it overnight. You know, the roads will be clear for Saturday, I expect. But the problem in this country is not the main roads as such, it's getting to them. because they don't do the little roads. So I could be snowed in, you know, and just can't physically get out from where I live to a decent road. But that remains to be seen. That's an assessment literally Saturday morning, is to get up, look out the window, see what it's like and think, is this worth risking life and limb to get to an orchid show? And I'll sort that out Saturday morning. Anyway, thanks for dropping by. Another little bit on sets. You know, sets are in my mind all the time to try and ease things, cluster things together so that they can be treated the same. And a lot of circumstances, they can then all be done at once, whatever you happen to be doing, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's how I like to work, and it may suit some, it may not suit some, but it certainly suits me. Let's have another quick look at that, because I've just moved some plants around, again thinking of my sets, because I need access to those that are starting to dry out too quick because they've been repotted recently. So I don't want them right up the back of the shelf, so I've got to move, you know, a dozen plants to get at one because it needs watering quicker than the others. So I've been shuffling today, and I thought, well, that's not where that should live. That's coleogeny. That should be down in the cool. But I'm quite happy for it to live up there while it's in bloom. That is fragile. Oh no, it's just wobbling a bit. It's on the edge of the shelf. I thought I was going to fall for a minute. So yeah, I've been shuffling around different things now. I only have holy clay pots on that shelf. Yeah, and all the other clay pots are there apart from one, and that's because it's in bloom and I want it up where I can see it. Yeah, so we've been shuffling, sorting things out. Yeah, and I do this at every opportunity, and the main opportunity is when I'm watering. It's the time when I'm going to handle all the plants, get them down off their shelves, look for bugs, check roots, be disgusted by the algae in the pot, all that sort of stuff. Just a general look round each time, and as the season goes along, the time I handle those pots, the frequency will get greater and greater. As I say, I was going 8 or 9 days in the winter before I was looking at the pots. Well, I'm down to 6 now, and once this cold snap has gone at the weekend, that may come back down to 5, but it'll be adjusted according to the type of weather we've had in the interval. Yeah, so if we get quite a lot of dull weather where it doesn't get too warm in here during the daytimes, well then the pots won't dry out so quick, so I can leave it an extra day. However, if we get lots of days like today where, despite being freezing cold outside, the sun's been on the grow room, then I've got the temperatures here and the pots will dry faster. So it's an assessment made as I go along. Okay, thanks for dropping by. See you next time.